What's up, kiddos? Trowbro is back with another e-learning with Trowbro, and today we're going to be drawing Bugs Bunny. That's right, the very Looney Tune himself. Now, super important, even though this is supposed to be our last e-learning video for our school year, I am going to keep doing e-learning videos all summer. And to keep you coming back, what I'm going to do is at the end of this video, I'm going to show some drawings that you guys have been making throughout all this quarantine process. So, next week, if you have your parents send me an email, which is right here, all right, send me a picture of your Bugs Bunny, I will show the drawing of Bugs Bunny that you made today. So let's go ahead and get started, okay? All right, so what I've done here is I went ahead and traced over the main shapes of Bugs Bunny's head and his body and his hand and his feet. Now, this is probably one of the easier pictures of Bugs Bunny I found. This one, we only have to draw one of his hands. So what I'm going to start with is that jelly bean shape of his torso, like his shoulders all the way to like where his hips would be. It's like a jelly bean shape. Remember, as you're drawing this right now, you should be drawing very lightly because you're going to have to erase some of these lines. These lines that we're drawing right now is really just to make sure that we get the basic shape of Bugs Bunny right. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and do his head. It's kind of like a weird shaped circle, like it was kind of squashed a little bit. And don't forget the little guidelines, that little plus sign. That's going to help us make sure that we put his eyes and his nose in the correct spots. Now this picture of Bugs Bunny only has one hand out and it's holding a carrot. I'm going to ignore the carrot, I'm going to ignore all the fingers, and all I want to do is draw the basic shape of what his palm looks like. I'm saving all the details for last. Alright, the next easiest big shape that I see is Bugs Bunny's feet. And they kind of have a football shape to it. Now remember, we're not drawing any of the details of his toes. I just want the basic shape of his whole entire foot. I want to draw that first. Make sure that I am getting the scale right. How big is his foot compared to the rest of his body? So I'm going to draw both of these football-shaped feet and the legs going to that jelly bean body. Don't forget, if you feel like I'm ever going too fast, it's okay to pause it or even rewind it and go back to a part. That's okay. All right. Last shape is his ears, and his ears are kind of like really long feather type shapes. Really skinny ovals. Alright, with Bugs Bunny's basic shapes of his body drawn, I'm going to bring back the photo of Bugs Bunny with all those details, and I'm going to start going in there and drawing those little shapes that I see. I'm going to start with Bugs Bunny's iconic face. And even though we drew a squished circle, his head really isn't that shape. So I'm going to go in there and start drawing the way the white part of his mouth is separated from the gray part. Now that I got Bugs Bunny's head shape correct, I'm going to work on this hand that's holding the carrot. And instead of trying to draw all the details of the carrot, I want to draw the shape of the carrot, which is kind of like a cylinder shape where you have an oval and it gets a little bit skinnier. This is going to help me draw the fingers around it. And I'm going to start with his pinky finger because that's the one that's in front, and it'll help me be able to draw the subsequent fingers, the second finger and the third finger. And remember, these fingers are kind of like oval shapes when you draw them. Alright, now off of that jelly bean shape of his body, I'm going to start drawing his shoulder and his other arm. And that's drawing just right off of that jelly bean shape. I'm looking kind of at the curve of his shoulder, and then it kind of goes down. And then where his arm and his body meet, that left arm that's kind of behind his back, it makes like a kind of a triangle shape. You see that little white triangle? That's negative space. That means there's nothing in there. That shape is super important to try to copy. Alright, now on to Bugs Bunny's feet. Now, if I look at his feet, they look kind of like he's sitting in like white sneakers to me. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to draw those shapes that I'm looking at, those kind of curvy, oval type shapes. Now, just like when I draw hands, when I draw feet, I want to draw the toes or the fingers that are closest to me. That's because you can see the whole toe. The toes behind it, you can't see all of it because it's overlapped by the one in the front. So always draw the first one, and then it's easier to draw the one behind it right after. Simple oval shapes. Now the last important shape that I need to draw on Bugs Bunny is his tail. Now you don't see a lot of it because of his arm in the way, but that's okay. I'm just going to draw the shape that I see. It's kind of like just like a curve, kind of like half of a U type shape. Alright, now maybe what is the hardest part of Bugs Bunny is his face. I'm going to start with his eyes because eyes are simple ovals, and then his eyebrows above it are kind of like upside down U's. It's just like part of an oval, but then you erase the bottom part of it. So I'm going to do his left eye, his nose, and then his right eye. Now from Bugs Bunny's nose, you have this line that separates the white part of Bugs Bunny's mouth and the gray part of the top of his head. So right from his nose, you have this kind of triangle shape, and then that white part of his Bugs Bunny's mouth is kind of like a squished football shape that has his mouth on it. Now the top of Bugs Bunny's mouth looks kind of like the same as a cat's. It's kind of like a little curve and then another curve, and then from that mouth part, Bugs Bunny's tooth comes out, and his tooth is kind of like a trapezoid type shape. And I'm going to draw that before I draw the rest of his mouth. You can kind of see that kind of hide the blue outline. That's just so I can see some of the details, just because it's kind of obscured. It's hard to see it, so I get rid of it sometimes, make sure I'm drawing it the right way. Now as I'm trying to draw Bugs Bunny's mouth, it seems like his whiskers keep getting in the way. Like it's kind of hard to see some of these shapes because all those whiskers are in the way. But from his mouth, you just have like this line that goes at the top, and then it's kind of like a bowl shape where you connect the left one to the right one. Now I'm going to go ahead and draw some of those little details that I see in his face, like his tongue and his pupil, those little black dots in the middle of his eyes. Alright, now that I got the basic shapes of his face done, I'm going to connect his head to that jelly bean of his body. So try to draw the neck the best way I see it. So his neck kind of goes into that shoulder. Alright, now right above his eyebrow, above his left eye, he's got 3 little hairs in between his ears. Now for his ears, I just did 2 ovals, but if you look at Bugs Bunny's actual ears, they're kind of like an organic shape. And so the ovals that I drew kind of helped me build these organic shapes off of it. So I draw like the outer part of the ear, and then I draw the inner ear, that pink part, last. It's a little easier to draw the pink part after you've drawn the outline of the whole ear. Alright, now I'm going to go in and kind of darken some of Bugs Bunny's face, define some of these shapes and these lines that I see. And I'm also going to go around and on the side of Bugs Bunny's cheeks, he's got these little jagged areas that kind of indicate that he's furry. He's a furry animal, so there's these little kind of sharp points, kind of triangle type shapes right on the sides of his cheeks, and there's 3 of them on each side, so I'm going to make sure I draw them. Drawing is all about refining, and it's kind of like a fancy word of saying going over and over again until you get it correctly. That's why I'm always drawing very lightly, because I don't necessarily know if it's the right line, so I'm trying to find these shapes with my pencil. And so as soon as I do find it, that's when I start to push down a little bit harder and make bold lines, because I'm confident that I know that it's the right one. And now going from Bugs Bunny's face, he has like this big white spot that goes from his neck all the way down to his belly. So I want to make sure I get that shape, kind of define that shoulder there too. Alright, now that I have the hard part done, Bugs Bunny's face, I'm going to go in there and start doing that carrot. I started with just a simple cylinder so that I have something in his hand for him to be holding, but now I'm going to go in there and start doing the details. This is what I talk about when I say refining. I go over and over again and try to find all those shapes. And I'm doing the carrot first, and then after that I'm going to do the lettuce that's coming out. There's like 3 little lines, and there's a kind of a bushiness of those leaves at the end of the carrot. I'm going to do that too. Now before I go in there and start doing all the little details, just like Bugs Bunny, I'm going to draw the basic shape of all of those green leaves. I'm not doing any of the detail, it's just kind of like a circle shape and then another circle shape. Then I'll go back and then I go in there and add all those little details that I see. But I want to make sure that I'm drawing it the right size. That's called proportions. And that's how you know that your drawing is correct, when it has the right sizes compared to everything else. That's what proportions mean. Alright, now that I got that carrot done, I'm going to go in there and define the shapes of Bugs Bunny's fingers and his wrist and his arm. Alright, I'm almost done. I want to go over any lines that are too light, darken the correct ones. So I'm going to do a once over his arm and his legs, because they're kind of light compared to his face and his other hand. Alright, I think the finishing touch is those 3 whiskers that he has on each side of his face. So 6 whiskers. Make sure I'm not drawing them too long. There's 3 that come out of each side of like right above his mouth. Alright, I think I have all the shapes drawn of Bugs Bunny, and the last thing I need to do is clean up. And that means I'm going to go around and I'm going to erase any lines that were kind of my sketch lines where I drew shapes, any lines that kind of go through his feet or his hands. I'm going to erase any lines that I don't want to see, clean up my drawing so that it's ready to color it if I want to, or it can just be a simple black and white drawing too. It looks good. And then, now I have my finished Bugs Bunny. And to quote Porky Pig,
That's all, folks.
Well guys, I hope you had fun drawing Bugs Bunny with me. I know he's a little bit more challenging than some of the other characters we've drawn so far in our e-learning series, but I promise if you just keep practicing drawing it over and over again, you will get better. Practice does make perfect. Now I'm going to show some of the drawings that you guys have made throughout the quarantine, and if you want me to showcase your picture of Bugs Bunny that you've drawn today, have your parents email me at this email address right here, and I'll showcase it next week on my next e-learning video.